This is Functional and Fabulous, the omni-channel podcast, where we unbox tales of online retail and digital transformation.
In this episode, it's all about Paul Stafford and retail media.
I have a question.
Okay, go on.
My question is, it can't be the Paul show.
Well, yes, it can. The whole point of the show is to have guests.
There is some ambiguity over it.
No, I mean, who's going to listen to a show with just Ger and Gordon?
Again, that's a hot topic.
How would we even do a show without guests?
Just got to get my Britney experience sorted out here.
Please don't.
To quote RuPaul, I can't wait to see how this turns out.
This episode of Functional and Fabulous is brought to you with pride by Studio 49, retail e-commerce experts, omni-channel growth consultants, and cut-through performance marketing specialists. Studio 49, where your digital retail success is built.
You're very welcome to another episode of Functional and Fabulous. This week, we'd like to welcome Paul Stafford, who is Head of Digital Marketing, Retail Media and Online Brand at Superdrug UK. So he manages the retail media team, the digital marketing team and the online design teams. Paul, have I done you justice or is there anything to add?
That's it all. Thanks.
Welcome to the podcast, Paul.
Great to have you here, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I suppose we had a little bit of a chat before the podcast, and I was very excited to hear the kind of the practical experience you've been having in the last while with retail media. Obviously, retail media, it's one of those things.
It's a hot topic.
It's hot right now. So, as you explained it and as you were talking about it, I felt like because you were so deep in the topic, you were really able to explain why you were interested in it, what it was, and what the plans are for Superdrug. So, I suppose for our listeners, would you mind just explaining a little bit about what retail media is, how you became interested in it, and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. So I think I get asked this question a lot and try and define what retail media is. Yep. I think there's a few ways to think about it. The easiest way to think about it for when I talk to my CEO, and that is retail media for us is think of Amazon.com or .co.uk, and you type in computer mouse or you type in watch strap, and then the search results will start to fill and populate with little tiles that say sponsored. So that is probably one aspect of retail media. It's the one that we're kicking off. So that's probably the best way to describe it. So retail media is essentially advertising space or inventory that a retailer can sell to suppliers. And in our case, it's such a lucrative opportunity for Superdrug because we work with so many global suppliers like L'Oreal and Procter & Gamble and all these big sort of players out there. So I guess that's the opportunity for us.
And what's in it for the suppliers?
Yeah, good question. So there's a huge amount in it for the supplier. So I guess the opportunity really is, if you just take it from a digital point of view, from a global brand point of view, you've got let's take L'Oreal or something, for example. They've got big global brand campaigns, but they don't have heavily trafficked websites. They might have some D2C sort of websites. So a lipstick brand or a shampoo might have a D2C brand, but they're not going to get the millions of visitors per day, per week, the type of traffic that Amazon and we get, month in, month out. So them, that the opportunity for them is to sort of close the loop on that sort of full funnel activation. So basically they can run a big brand awareness piece and get people to know and have that front of mind with salient activity. But then they can start to sell individual SKUs on our website, on a daily basis. So that high conversion run activations as well, which previously they don't really have a big opportunity to do. Yes, they can do that on Amazon, but with our retailers like us, Boots are there, the Hook Group, Look Fantastic are already there as well. So it's a huge opportunity for these guys.
And just to clarify it, I mean, if I'm a large brand, I have my D2C website, but the traffic that I have to that website isn't at the level that that you would see on Superdrug. I really need to make sure that my next drop is going to work. I can buy space on Superdrug. I can ensure that the let's say I guess in a way I can have a bit of an influence over the merchandising of the site by basically putting ads on the site and ensuring that my target customers are able to see those my product and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So So I guess basically what the brands can do is that they will take place in an auction, for example. So like they can't just kind of come in and say we will buy one spot and it's a specific spot. So just how you'd like book media with like Google and PPC. So they go into an auction based on CPC or CPM sometimes as well, and then they can get like kind of premium position across a whole list of pages. So we're available. We've got like, you know, inventory for sale across, you know, a huge sort of amount of the Superdrug estate. So that's one part of it. But then they can also start to do the other sort of the brand piece as well, or maybe a bit kind of less conversion heavy as well with the display element as well. Yeah. So, you know, so there's the sponsored search piece. So if they want to then start to have more, which is basically just sort of like just a text, just an image of a shampoo or something like that with a price point. If they want to do some more rich media, like a static image or like a video file, they can also book display, which is then booked programmatically as well. So it's about them sort of like appearing in the right time, right place to the relevant people, kind of like classic sort of digital mode as well. So that's why they're super interested in it.
So if we were to sum it up, it would be the programmatic monetization of your effectively your page views, which is now your ad inventory. So you're acting a bit like a media business.
That's it, exactly. So we're a publisher almost
Retail.
As well, right? So like, yeah, we are a media agency, yeah. So, you know, and that's the team that we're setting up here as an in-house and acting, you know, I was just speaking to someone earlier on about it, like we've got to take that media agency mindset and build a model around it as well. So I don't just deal with, you know, suppliers, we deal with agency groups as well. Like, so anyone from Group M to Dentsu and anyone else in between, because, you know, there are so much more kind of levers to retail media that we're not active in at the moment, but like further down the line, you know, big data plays, how we sort of like activate retail media through connected TV, you know, as linear TV starts to sort of decline and CTV or, you know, VOD, whatever you want to call it, starts to come more to the fore. How do we start to, you know, commodify what we do with our data with those suppliers, you know, through clean rooms and all sorts of like different avenues. And it's one of those things that is growing so quickly that there's sort of a new strand to it almost every day, right?
Yeah. I have a question. I have a question.
I think I know what this is going to be.
You know what the question is, don't you? But I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So, as a retailer, you would be in receipt of MDF, marketing development funds, or marketing support, whatever you might call that, from a lot of brands that you've been working with, like old model, been around forever. It's like, okay, carry our inventory. We'll give you X amount of X percentage of your buy in marketing support. How does retail media differ from MDF or traditional marketing support funds?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's a hot topic. So most businesses would call it a JBP, like a joint business plan or something like that. Like, so, you know, you would have like suppliers obviously have a pool of money that they invest in with us that then be used across the year, right? And then this goes sort of kind of linked back to when I said that retail media for me at the moment means everything is a digital play, right? Retail media has been around for a long time. So those MDF funds or JVPs have been around since retail began for, you know, suppliers to book POS in store or whatever, right? So that is sort of like the retail media model that is of old. What the retail media banner now has done is sort of like digitize that as well, and put the, you know, to use your own words, like to put the programmatic lens on top of things as well. So we have all those things on one side, and there's JVPs. You know, I think most businesses' approach to it is what's net new. So how can you take that incremental element to it as well, right? So yes, we have X coming in from supplier 1, 2, and 3. And those things are booked in as part of JVP. But the way most retailers are starting to look at it is what's net new. And I suppose net new is like we have new inventory to merchandise, like you say as well, for these guys. So we previously don't have search or display on site, maybe a bit of like tenancy banners, but now it moves into programmatic, so you get better for your money or whatever. And then furthermore, then you start to digitize digital screens in store, you start to digitize the CTV and all those sort of things. So yeah, it's a great question. And there is some ambiguity over it, and there are some sort of like conversations that you may have as well. But for the most part, I think most brands or retailers, will view it as net new and, you know, never the twain shall meet.
Yeah. So you've created effectively these new touch points for the customer. And therefore, if the brand partners that you're working with want to buy into those new touch points, they can, and they can do that programmatically. That's the third time programmatic has popped up now. They can do that
Bingo.
programmatically through your team. Okay, next question then is, that must be tech heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Tell us about
Tell
their
us
tech.
about it.
I sound tired when I say that.
Yeah, you do.
You know, it's one of those things. We started with this about 20 months ago, right? And we're going to go, fully live on the November 15th.
Wow.
So, that gives you an idea. But, it's tech heavy because you've got systems that need to, we work off you have our own internal hybrid system that, we need, where we've kind of teamed up with Criteo. I'm not sure if familiar with the big players. There's Criteo,
Yep.
Citrus, Inmark, Kevel, Dunhomey, just all these players within markets. We've teamed up with Criteo to kind of be to supply the dashboard for the brands and agencies to come in and book campaigns or whatever. So, there's that bit, but then there's a whole heap more as well that we're starting to explore as well. So you've got where does PackView fit in? Where does Sky fit in? There's all these other things, measurement solutions. And then, we start to get more advanced, where will how will we have one dashboard to book everything, so everything isn't disconnected. So, in-store screen, how can you start to, and that's where it gets really complex. So, we are at the start of that journey, and obviously, as a business, starting to roadmap what that tech roadmap is going to look like. But yeah, it's been interesting, and but yeah, it's if anyone's out there trying to get into it, make sure it's going to take some time. It's not easy. Yeah.
It also sounds capex heavy. I mean, this is obviously Superdrug is quite a substantial business. Is this the sort of thing Irish retailers would be able to access?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, there are ways around it, right? So, some of those sort of some of those products like Criteo, Citrus work on commission models, so actually the cost to enter isn't huge, right? So you might say that supplier one of the inventory or the tech will work on almost it's not like a SaaS, most of them are commission basis, whatever. Yeah, so they'll take that slice, and then so that kind of relieves you on the capex front.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you get your partner to give you effectively the auction tech, and then you have to still integrate those ad slots across your site, I'm guessing. And I'm guessing that's why it takes 20 months.
Yeah, well, within that, then you've got RFPs as well. So, you got to go out to market, you've got a business case, you got to strategize it, you've got to then sell it into the business, you got to go stakeholders aligned, you got to drum up interest from your suppliers. So, yeah, there's the tech bit, but there's the whole, again, supplanting this sort of new model within a business like Superdrug is it's entirely new. It's not like it's a shock to the system, but there are definitely sort of you've got to kind of address it in the right way and take people on a journey and that type of thing.
And
interesting.
Yeah,
I just think from the perspective of how you even go about selling something like that into a broader business, something the size of Superdrug. And I love the succinctness of, it's like the sponsored bits that appear on Amazon, but I don't know if that surely you can't cut cultural change just by that statement. And I think
I presume as well. So Superdrug is part of A.S. Watson.
Yeah.
So is Superdrug the first business within that group doing this, or were you able to leverage previous experience within the group as a whole, or what was that like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's been a global project. Well, at least a European project. So that whole RFP piece or whatever. So as I say, and then we are the second BU to go live. So Kruidvat in the Netherlands, who are the biggest sort of health and beauty retailer over there. They're one on every corner basically. So they've gone live a little bit before us.
And how is it going?
And then there'll be others to follow.
How is it going in Kruidvat?
So far so good.
So far, so good. Tell me, just when you're launching something like this, I mean, obviously you could probably sell, I mean, so many parts of the estate on the site. But what are you actually going to launch with? Will it be a number of banners, call to actions, product detail page, product listing page? What are you going live with?
Yeah. So quite simply, we're going live with sponsored products in the first instance. So that's what like suppliers we're working through briefs at the moment. So and you can imagine what those briefs are going to look like. So stocking fillers, Christmas, winter. So they're the type of kind of briefs that we're getting in at the moment. Where our display is going to go live probably a little bit later. Again, it's part of like that tech and kind of resource piece as well. I try to just kind of slate that in. There are two separate pieces of work to get that sponsored piece done. We're also launching live a new platform as well, which is called Zitcha, which is a Australian retail media sort of like proposition, but within the social media space. So that is also going to go live, and we're the first brands in Europe to go live with them. And I think they're really interesting.
What does that product do?
Yeah, so one of the kind of things that we work with suppliers is around paid social, and within paid social there are Facebook collab ads. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Yeah, so traditionally, like basically, it's not very collaborative. It's a bit one-sided on the retailer front, so it doesn't give a lot of transparency to our suppliers, which sort of like makes them a little bit nervous and apprehensive, which is absolutely kind of fair, right? So basically, with Zitcha is a great tool that has access to business manager, can access our business manager and sort of clone on by API. The easiest way to say it is it clones on, and then it builds out a clone version of our business manager. Then the agencies and brands can come in and access our audiences without ever going into business manager. So they can come in and build their own sort of portal within that. So brand A will have brand A come in, and then they can see that. But also then the beauty of it is that they can access our audiences and then run campaigns through their own brand handles, with all the traffic then driving towards superdrug.com. Directly
to your audiences, or are these lookalike audiences?
So you can do both. So basically, whatever you want to do within Business Manager, you can do that. So we would have our own set of preset audiences, whatever that might be, total UK audience, 18, blah, blah, blah. Then you can build a lookalikes on top of that as well, and then run the campaign. So basically, the media agency or in-house agency or whatever team is trying to book that campaign has full control over that. So they can see in real time what's working, what's not. And I think what's interesting about this is that we have access to MPAs for the first time as well, which is like the new product from Facebook, the managed product ads. So essentially kind of giving that SKU level opportunity for suppliers to come in and run campaigns as well. I think we're going to be the first in Europe to launch out. I believe there's somewhere live in New Zealand with that. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. And all of these ads, I mean, so obviously the suppliers and the brands have, let's say, full control over what they're doing in terms of the spend and the targeting that they want, obviously based on your audiences. And did you say all of those all of that advertising is directed to the Superdrug site?
Correct. Yeah. So that's a condition of it. Yeah. So access the audiences, but like all that traffic must come towards .com.
That's a fair exchange.
I think so.
Paul, this sounds like there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And how, I suppose my question is, it can't be the Paul show. So what does a team look like for something like this? You've talked about like an in-house digital agency, technology, like innovation that's happening with new third-party apps and like the meta piece there is incredibly innovative. But like, what does a team even need to look like to do this? If someone's listening and thinking this is actually going to work great for our business, what do we need to do?
Yeah, well, first off, you need like sort of your internal sort of dotted lines, right? So, before you even start kind of like building out the new people, you need those dotted lines. So there are new billing processes and invoicing processes, right? So there you go. You're asking someone in the finance team to do more than is currently on their job, okay? You've got legal teams. So now we're in the world of advertising, approvals and T's and C's. So we need people to kind of be on side with that. IT, constant amount of sort of code, really, all the things that go with that as well. I've got like data and insights. I need people to build more audiences than ever before because we get more advanced and going to have brand ones looking for more bespoke and tailored audiences. But also down at the other end, they might be looking for more sort of advanced measurement. So all these sort of dotted lines and stakeholders, sort of you've got to really kind of corral a lot of people to get them. Then when you go live, it's, there's a few different directions it could take. The direction we're taking is that, like, so first off, there'll be someone come in and he'll sort of like head up the team from sort of like think about kind of like a classic sort of like group account director, sort of like business director sort of role. Chatting to clients, suppliers, agencies, responsible for kind of like the day-to-day management of the account, but also then the strategy as well. Like, so, what does the future look like? That sort of stuff. Then in the kind of like, you will then need someone sort of in the weeds of the execution every day as well. Like, so who is there sort of like running the campaigns, doing sort of like the tasks like keyword generation and, those things that go on with a sort of like a classic campaign manager. That will start to probably fillate and populate as we start to kind of grow the business a bit more. Then you might start to get someone in who's like a bit more strategic head, someone then who is a bit more sort of like thinking further down the line, what is the role of data in 3 years? What is our tech piece as well? Like, or how can I start to, an ambition of ours would be to really offer that full funnel suite. So how could we start to work with brands and maybe their agencies to sort of like address strategic comms challenges, beyond just the precision marketing piece. So kind of like, we want to build a brand. How would we do that using your data? I don't know. Yeah. But that's sort of how you start to sort of like see the team evolution go.
That is, I lost count about 2 minutes ago.
That's quite a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And I also noticed when we first talked, Paul, I think you were head of digital marketing and online brand. And you were managing two distinct teams. I think your LinkedIn tells me now you are digital marketing, retail media, online brand, managing 3 distinct teams. Did you just kind of sneak in, or was retail media just kind of like, because it sounds like a lot of stuff to be put in beside 2 other sizable roles.
Yeah. Well, like, I think kind of the retail media thing was a passion point, like that sort of like I really wanted to, I just believed in it for the business, which is good. And the business kind of has believed in it. And then it was kind of serendipitous that the AS Watson group were also sort of looking at it as well. So actually a lot of things sort of like lined up well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There are like parallels between what the retail media team will do and the digital marketing team. Like a lot of those skill sets are transferable. So planning, social media. So kind of like understanding the comms planning side of that, search as well. So like on-site search and PPC, there's, sort of like a little bit as well. It's a bit of SEO in there as well. So there's lots of different parallels between those 2 teams. And then the third team that I look after as well as like a design team. So looking after sort of like how the website looks and feels as well. But actually we have a lot of those guys doing sort of like paid social as well. So there are actually sort of like some degrees of commonality between those 3 teams.
Yeah. And I suppose in terms of predictability, so I'm a supplier or a brand, and I want to get a good solid sale on a product that I've just brought out, and I need it to get off the ground running. When I go to Superdrug, how predictable is it that I could say, okay, look, can I buy buy myself, let's say, 10,000 units worth of sales? I know you're only starting this, so obviously it's early doors, but is it predictable at all?
I mean, well, nothing's a given, but I suppose like what the suppliers be looking for mostly is ROAS, I suppose, right? So it's kind of like, what is the return on whatever pound they spend? Can they get 2x, 3x, whatever? So I don't know if the KPI would be sell me 10,000 units or something like that. It's more like, I want a ROAS of X, or, we're willing to, that's the sort of like where the bids will go, or the sort of like the KPIs will go. But could be to, we might just kind of leave it on until you get to 10,000 units. I don't know.
Yeah. And also then it becomes a market function. The joy of the auction then is like anybody that's been on retailer side is like, used to having their hearts broken by high CPMs that mean that you can't hit your ROAS target. But that's because there are other people that are prepared to pay those high CPMs, and then that just becomes a function of the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's about like, when you look at sort of like within that, when you talk about CPMs and CPCs or whatever kind of people are going to bid on, the level of competition is not going to be huge versus Amazon as well, right? So I suppose kind of like keeping the rates to a kind of like affable level should be relatively okay. The proof in the pudding is going to be on how are we returning on the spend for the suppliers.
Yeah.
So that's when the scrutiny will come, right? So yes, in Amazon, probably got like 10,000 people in every category or whatever, thousands in every category. In ours, you'll have like 4 or 5. So the competition will be high, but like the proof will be within the money that they get back.
On paper, it should be successful, right? It
feels like it.
It's in the right environment. It's close to the point of purchase. So you're probably it's probably a fairly sure investment.
You would imagine, yeah. I mean, and the way you look at that is like, will it be or not be? Obviously, there's a lot of industry hype. Is it like a shiny new thing? But like from what I see is like that all the teams that we work with have new retail media teams, retail media directors and central units and COE and all these sort of things. The media agencies are starting to set up like, retail media wings within their e-commerce functions as well. Then ISBA have just released sort of like a kind of standardization of sort of like KPIs or kind of on the road to that as well.
Yeah.
So all those things, lead to think that like, yes, it is a successful sort of like area to be in. Yeah.
Be very interesting.
And I suppose like we have, we've got a really good head start across a lot of other websites or retailers as well for being, just given the volume of traffic that we get as well.
Great.
And sorry, I had one other question which has just escaped,
which I've just ruined by jumping in.
Well, look, that happens. Actually, what it was so are you supported then with stock by the suppliers? So, I'm supplying. I'm going to be paying for ads on your site. I'm going to be trying to promote certain products. What if I pay for ads, it's really successful, and you sell out of the products?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, everything's linked to our product feed anyway. So we have like availability levels. So like triggers will go off. So if like a brand is about to invest in its availability is less than X. So all that's actually kind of taken care of, that's built into the tech piece.
And that's part of the tech piece okay, excellent.
Yeah, well, we were recently talking about luxury and how certain retailers in the luxury space have very, very limited quantities of product within their assortment, and that could be challenging there. But I guess I guess a business like Superdrug is more likely to have always available continuity lines.
Yeah, I mean, like we're mass, all our brands for the most part, we do have premium, but like for the most part, it's mass kind of like high volume sort of stuff as well. Like, so for the most part, we've got a really strong availability level.
Can I then ask, if I'm sitting here and I, as a retailer, and I'm like, this is exciting for me. I've got like loads of traffic. I fit that profile. There's a couple of retailers I could think of here who potentially would fit that profile of this would be suitable for me. What would be your advice to where would you even start?
Yes, good question. I suppose with anything, you probably just want to perhaps speak to a consultant or something like that as well. Go and kind of find an expert in the market. There are people out there like Colin Lewis, so kind of go and speak and have a chat, informal on, or maybe go to your network as well. I was at a event run by Crido the other day, and I met people from Ocado, Net-a-Porter, so there's a big network of people out there as well. So I'd say kind of either go down your own connections base, maybe even talk to your agency as well, because like I said, those agencies now have are likely to have retail media within that e-commerce function if they don't have distinct and standalone retail media functions themselves. So there's probably a few avenues to go down.
And just to quantify it, What kind of traffic would you need to be generating per month or to start thinking that you are actually suitable for this sort of thing?
I don't know. I don't know. So you might not need as much as you think. So, I've seen recently there was like a sofa company, and kind of like, which probably has sort of lower conversion rates and sort of, your big ticket items, where we sell stuff for like £2-3, 5. So kind of like it really kind of like quick purchase versus or less considered.
Yeah.
But I've seen recently that you can kind of work in like the, and how much traffic is that? I'm not going to name the company, but like sofa company A is going to get, what's the volume of traffic and why would people be bidding on there? Was you're not going to click on that straight away. And so I don't know, it probably depends on your business. And again, that comes with like, how you strategize and business planning, because you'd be surprised that like people will always want to buy space on your website, right? Even at my time at Virgin Media, we did it for a while, a little bit, it got a bit strange. We had things like Fiat, buying banner space or whatever. But like you will always be able to sell space on your website, no matter what it is, And you see those sort of like kind of like built for ads websites popping up all over the internet anyway. So wherever you are, I'm sure someone will want to buy inventory off you. I suppose you just need to business case it and make sure that it is right for you and the opportunity is right. Because like it's a long journey, as you know, and then there is investment required.
Very good.
Quality over quantity, and go and talk to your network.
And
exactly, yeah.
Just we need to wrap up shortly, but I did have a question. So I mean, if it feels like Superdrug is quite innovative, you've been pushing something that I think is quite innovative, and you're getting the support as well in the business. What's happening in 2024 for you guys? I mean, are you going to be bedding this in, or is there something new that you have your eye on?
In terms of beyond retail media, or
well, beyond retail media, or well, in retail media if you like. But what else?
Yeah.
What's on the roadmap for 24?
Yeah, I mean, Superdrug is a really innovative from a digital point of view. It really is innovative. We obviously work with AS Watson as well, and their Hong Kong base. So I suppose like innovation's at the core of it. So I suppose there's things like we're looking at the TikTok shop space, kind of live commerce. It's quite slow moving at the moment. Will it take off the way it has in, Asia? TBC, we're experimenting there. In-store experiences, virtual mirrors, beauty mirrors, that sort of stuff as well. Kind of like they're kind of like cool little things to have. How we communicate with customers, I suppose, we're exploring WhatsApp, as a sort of like a customer service tool, but potentially as a marketing tool as well. What else? I mean, there's tons of stuff coming through. Like AI. I suppose one of the kind of key things that we're chatting about now is AI and how AI can sort of like evolutionize or become part of the evolution of the business as well. Like with the design team, we're talking a lot about generative AI as well, and kind of like how can that make their lives easier, so we get like a product image and then just kind of create like 50 backgrounds in half a second, so and then that goes up on the web page, so there's like the innovation question, sorry, slow answers, is actually a lot happening.
There's a lot happening.
And it's probably a lot in every area. Yeah.
And out of curiosity, we were talking about this as well recently, and loyalty was kind of has been a big topic. It was a big topic for 2023. And it feels now that it's kind of, let's say, evolving into a question about community. So the distinction being that it's not just about rewarding, it's also embracing the community, getting the feedback, and having the advocates, we'll say. Where does Superdrug sit with that topic?
Oh, yeah, I'm mainly leading the way as well. Like there's a community team, and then we have a community section of the website, and within that then there are sort of like, I don't know their exact terms, but like they're super users or like top contributors that actually, like any other sort of blog or anything, like are responsible for responding to 80 or 90% of the questions that come in, so beauty amongst, so my last role was FMCG at PepsiCo. Like, you don't really need a community for, Walker's Crisps or Tropicana. But like, you've got like, young teenage girls or like uni girl, whoever it might be, looking for advice on like, what's the best lipstick out there? How do I use this? And so on. So that community is like hugely active, hugely engaged. And we take a lot of insight from it.
Brilliant. Paul, thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's been so interesting. It's been a real eye-opener. And I've
totally put him on the spot.
He just totally pointed at me. I was like,
Good finish.
Finish strong, Gordon. Finish strong. So, Paul, it's been a real eye opener. Yeah. I've taken a huge amount away from this, but like to sum up, this is not a retail media for anyone that's listening. Is not going to be a quick project that we're just going to dip our toes in and try. I think is probably the biggest takeaway from me.
Yeah, but it is fascinating with an enormous amount of potential. I do, it does feel like an area, and I always think back to Vinny O'Brien. I don't know if you know Vinny, Paul.
I haven't met him. I've seen him on LinkedIn.
So he's very, he talks about the kind of collaborative / cooperative approach to e-commerce in Ireland. So what can we do in order to cooperate with each other? And I feel some way that maybe a cooperative approach to the retail media side of things may play, where a number of different retailers get together to deliver the sort of traffic that would be of interest, and that sort of thing in Ireland. But it's a really fascinating area, and I think you've really you've had a great experience in terms from a practical point of view, and it's very obvious. And thank you so much for sharing with us, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Really enjoyed it. Yeah,
thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, Paul. So what did we learn?
I to be honest, now that is really I love that. I have to say, that kind of turns me on. The whole data, the ability to turn, a commodity that people don't even think is a commodity. I mean, they think, like, everybody thinks that their own audience is a commodity for themselves. And having first party data for your customer data platform and all of that kind of thing. And the website obviously is a commodity for yourself, and you've invested so heavily in it. And now you're turning this into something that you can also sell. And when he talks about inventory, we didn't quite explain it, but when he was talking about inventory there, he was talking about ad spaces.
Inventory, as opposed to stock inventory.
Yeah. So I just love that that shift in perspective, which suddenly kind of 10x's the value of the assets that you have, and in this case, the level of traffic that they've developed over time with all of the investment, their tech investment that gives them the website, the collection of data that they have that they are now able and in a position to leverage in order to facilitate their suppliers to spend more money with them.
Yeah,
I mean, it's great.
I really enjoyed Paul's explanation of why this is different to traditional marketing development funds or marketing support funds, because you're sick of me asking everybody that question, and because I ask it every time, and nobody has been able to clearly articulate it. But it was a very clear explanation that this is net new ad inventory that is now available for you to buy. And if I am a brand manager at any brand, at a P&G or even at a PepsiCo or wherever, I am always going to be looking for more efficient ways of reaching my customers. And I would be prepared to, if I had no net new budget, I'd be prepared to take some of that budget away from some of my other media investments that I might be making in a Meta or in a Google or in any other.
Like, I mean, how much closer can you get in terms of the quality of the audience, the level of intent, the proximity to the buy button?
Yeah, you're there. It's basically you've got, like, think of it as standing in front of a supermarket shelf, and you're in front of shampoo, and your choices are all in front of you. You've got loads of choices, and then one of those choices is just like leaping out from you, going, buy this one. It's kind of like that. And if you're a brand owner, you're fighting really for one, brand awareness, but also at the point of sale, it's consideration and purchase, and it significantly improves improves the chances of that taking place. But also, it's done in a way that inventory hasn't been there to buy before.
Yeah.
And that's why it's different to the marketing development funds that have been available in the past.
Yeah. I probably don't have the same, experience in the real term with the marketing development funds. It feels very different to me, this approach. And that's, I suppose, more because it's within the realm of the control of the supplier. They will have access to deciding what kind of budget they want to put in there or not. They can push it harder if, as opposed to, let's say, months of, discussion and debate and negotiation in order to get your funding. And
well, it's typical of digital media mechanisms. You can dip in, you can test it, you can dip out if it doesn't work, you can refine it, you can optimize it. So providing that the technology's there, I think it's really interesting that they've partnered and not gone out and tried to build the tech themselves, which is very sensible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and go on, sorry.
And then I think it's interesting that then that interface that they've now got, which I would love to have a look at, is now going to be available to agencies, it's going to be available to brands, and it's going to be in that kind of familiar format that everybody's used to working with now, which is a variant of really Business Manager that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah.
I just hope it's a little bit less complicated to use than Business Manager for anyone that's listening that has their head in Business Manager and Ad Manager. They'll know that it can be a bit minefieldy.
Yeah, and it does give the suppliers, i.e. the buyers of the media inventory, both an assurance around where the budget is going because they're controlling it themselves, and that kind of access, we'll say, to the data,
visibility,
and visibility. And there was a point that Paul made towards the end, just after we wrapped up the recording, where he talked about his time in PepsiCo and where he was trying to be data driven, but they didn't have a lot of data, and a lot of the data that they did have was effectively second-hand or third-hand data that they were getting from the people that they were supplying to. So they couldn't wrap their hands around the information that they needed to make some of those decisions. They had to rely on retailers sending that information back to them. And they, whereas in this kind of a relationship, you've got you're far closer to the data, and you can make those decisions.
Well, basically, you get your delayed sell-through report from the retailer, what have you sold?
Yeah.
And you've made an investment, but that investment may be in POS or a store fit or wherever. So it's very, very delayed in terms of the feedback loop, that you're not going to be able to get that instant measurement. And also, you're not going to get anywhere near close to the customer.
Yeah. And this clean room idea where they can make the audience in a safe manner, we'll say, obviously GDPR compliant and anonymized data and all the rest of it. But that's now all available to a supplier. So I'm Colgate. I want to come in. I want to push a particular new product or test a product. I want to see if my charcoal toothpaste is going to fly or not. I can go on to Superdrug. I can buy the space I need to test it properly to make sure that it's not, to take out some of the variables and to get it at the top of the toothpaste category, and to have brand awareness and all the rest of it to actually properly test some of those things.
Yeah, it also actually opens up some other stuff too. If you're a smaller brand, like a Spotlight, then you can go head to head with Colgate if you're already listed, and I think it opens up that it's another avenue of competition. And I enjoyed the point that Paul made of, well, the market isn't going to drive this too high because there's probably only 4 or 5 players in every category. So I also think that that's like, it's almost self-controlling, because I'm like talking to people, an Amazon CPC can get quite steamy, depending on how stacked that category is and how open that category is.
And it gives you some more options in the, because you need to get demand, you need to generate demand for your product. It gives you more options to do that.
There's also, this has been talked about from a theoretical perspective for some time now.
Yeah.
So what's going to be really interesting is in 12 months' time, when we check in with Paul to see how well or not this is done. So everything, on paper, this is so hot right now.
Yeah.
So is it going to translate? I think it will. If I was a betting man, I'm going to bet it will because there's too much momentum.
I think it must do. And what will I feel answer that question is when we put the question again about the predictability. How predictable is it? Yeah. And somebody is and Paul might be able to answer. Well, in a particular category, you'll get a 10% conversion rate if you're in this place.
Your ROAS will be X.
And your ROAS will be, exactly. And if those KPIs, and those are the KPIs that he was talking about that are being developed at the moment, and I don't know, correct us if we're wrong. Maybe Colin Lewis might correct us if we're wrong.
To be honest, I was about to come on to Colin Lewis for a second there. He has done well at establishing himself as the global authority on retail media.
Of retail media. Well, look, fair play.
So if you want to know about retail media, give Colin a follow because he's got a lot to say on the topic and it's very, very well informed.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. And I suppose my question was, are these KPIs already established? Do we have numbers? Do we, numbers that we can feel kind of confident about? And if not, I think when those numbers do come up and we have benchmark figures for what a conversion rate might be or a ROAS or whatever KPI it's going to be, then we'll know whether or not this has succeeded.
Yeah. Oh, and I think it will, and it's going to be great to see. It's to quote RuPaul. I can't wait to see how this turns out.
The other part of it is it does feel like one of those areas that could be up for a little bit of disruption. It's already disrupting things, but obviously Superdrug have had to invest heavily. It puts them at the leading edge. It gives them a great competitive advantage in the market, truly. But it does feel like the kind of area that will soon have a cooperative angle or plug in this.
I like the idea. I actually like the idea of a cooperative angle on this. And it gives me, just listening to him there, it's one of the things that we see in retail at the moment is the consolidation, the emergence of the mega retailer. So, Fraser's Group would be one of those where fingers in many pies. Lots and lots of dominance on the high street. Then there's other big mega retailers in here. And this further strengthens, it's a new revenue stream for the mega retailer. But then when you look at Ireland, where you've got maybe more brands and it's a little more dispersed. So one of the areas, pharmacy springs to mind, probably because we've just spent the last hour talking about Superdrug. But there's lots of pharmacy groups. So is pharmacy an area for cooperative in Ireland? Maybe not. Maybe all the pharmacy CEOs are now going absolutely not. But that cooperative idea could actually work where we've got lots of smaller retailers. Although if the barrier to entry is time as opposed to technology, because the technology works on a commission basis, then maybe that will be counter against that.
Yeah. Having said that, the technology works on a commission basis, but 20 months worth of organising things doesn't come cheaply either.
Imagine the RFPs.
Yeah.
Imagine the
selection
internal
process.
the internal convincing that would have had to have been done. The politicking of asking somebody in Paul referenced it. Asking somebody in finance to do something completely different. By the way, I think people who work in finance do a great job. It's just something else for them to do. And it's a slightly different take on accounts payable.
Yeah. So that was fascinating
I
for
can
me.
tell
I really
you didn't
enjoyed
enjoy
it.
that at
I
all.
love that. Now I have to say that was really that was really my kind of conversation. Gordon, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks so
I've
much.
enjoyed every second. Thank you for listening to Functional and Fabulous.
Thank you. You've been listening to Functional and Fabulous with Ger and Gordon Newman. If you'd like to know more about the podcast or about Studio 49 and Omnichannel Stories, please go to functionalandfabulous.ie. Our sound engineer was Elaine Smith, and the show was produced by Roger Overall.